norms are I always tell this to my students, norms basically reflect Homer Simpson, but they don't mean anything. For example, morning glucose is considered within range of 70 to 99. Mm-hmm. Well, the research is very clear. For every point you are above 70, your risk of cardiovascular disease goes up 5%. So you could be 99, which is within range, but you're 145% greater risk for cardiovascular incidents.
Yeah, you're glycolating a lot of this glucose, cross-linking with proteins. That is very interesting. So what would you do in like a I mean, obviously we're in a day and age where Wi-Fi is not going away. We're exposed to, we have cell phones, we have computer laptops and iPads and all this stuff. What do you do?
Well, first of all, is you turn your Wi-Fi when you're not sleeping. When you're sleeping, when you're not using it. Or if you're in the house and you're not using it, turn it off. Reduce the difference. A lot of people use their cell phones as an alarm clock. No, don't do that.
I do that.
Use a battery-operated cheap alarm clock you buy at Walmart for $5. And then take the cell phone, the battery out of it, and when you sleep, so it doesn't emit radiation. Because even though it's on standby mode, there's actually a very good research paper that showed that if you wear your cell phone on your hip, it decreases your androgens by 31%.
I put mine in my pocket. It's right by my you-know-what. I bet I'd have nothing left there.
Yeah, so all of these, when you start, then you look at shampoos and parabens and whatever. So, basically, the key, David, I think, is to be educated. And then that's why on my website, every week, for example, last week we did a thing on olive oil. We look at these analysis of all the olive oils in the industry sold in the U.S.
Right.
And a lot of stuff which you're basically conned into believing it's a good product. And we actually give out all the brands and whatever else. So
you tested them all? You tested?
No, not me, but an independent lab did, but I got access to the report. And we published a 2-part article. A lot of people can't read research, so we basically translated for them what it actually meant.
What was the best brands out there? Do you remember?
I can't remember. You would have to look on my website. But the thing that was shown also is that depending on where you buy it, it doesn't necessarily come from the same spots. It could have the same name on the label, but a bottle of brand X in California could be worse than a bottle that's in Boston. So,
really?
But it did identify which ones were best.
Well, that's why I sell macadamia oil. I've given up on olive oil. I don't trust it anymore.
Yeah.
What if I went to let's say I went to your clinic, this compounding clinic you're going to make up, and I had a kid who was ADD, or I had a kid who was autistic. Would there be suggestions that you can make, like chemical wise? I mean, or supplement wise?
Oh yeah, very much so.
What would you recommend for like a person with ADD?
Well, with ADD, usually the omega-3 DHA is more helpful for that. Also, there's a very good nutraceutical that's very cheap called inositol, which has been shown to upregulate or downregulate. Basically, it's an adaptogen for all neurotransmitters. So, for example, if your dopamine is low but your acetylcholine is too high, it brings one up and brings the other one down.
Interesting.
And that's, I got a good article now on my website. And pretty much inositol has been shown clinically in the scientific literature to affect 16 different types of brain disorders. Things like ginkgo biloba increase speed of nerve conduction, so that helps. Acetylcarnitine is a good one.
Sure.
Actually, vitamin D3 helps a lot with ADD.
Does it really? And a lot of people are we're all deficient in it, and people don't realize that.
Correct. I mean, it depends which norms you use, but what's considered within range in the U.S., even the I range is considered deficient.
What do you think the right range should be?
80 to 120.
I was taking 3,000 units a day of vitamin D, and my values came back at 35. And I read in Life Extension it should be 50. So I upped it to 5,000 units a day. I'm up to 50, and you're telling me I'm still low.
Oh, yeah. If you talk to Mark Houston, who's probably one of the best internists that specializes in cardiovascular disease, you will find that he says that at 80, blood markers for cardiovascular disease are improved dramatically. Another point for that, David, is that if you look in the literature, in countries where the natives have D3 above 80,
right,
there's not a single case of autoimmune disorders reported.
Wow. So you think
for example, if you go to the Dominican Republic and you ask people, how many lupus cases have you seen?
0.
Or how many rheumatoid arthritis cases you've seen? They say, I learned it in school, but never seen it. They know they exist, but they don't see it in their client base. It's not because they're extremely wealthy and there's so much D3 in their blood. I mean, I tested my students at the DR just for interest, and the average was 123. And the Dominicans are very strong individuals, when you look at them in the gym. But if you look at research out of McGill University, in women, untrained women, if you measure their D3, it's directly correlated to how much bench press strength they got.
Wow, really? So you think that the strength of some of these athletes is being suffering because of the D3 deficiency?
I can guarantee you that once I optimize some guy's D3, his strength levels go up, his glucose management goes up, and you also realize, David, that every single detoxification gene has a D3 receptor site for it. So detoxification of a poor environment is D3 dependent. So the research is very clear now. Every single cause of mortality known to man is affected by D3.
How much do you take a day?
I take an average. I do what the research says. I take 50,000 twice a week.
Wow. So you don't take it every day, then, is what you're saying?
Well, the research tends to show that the body does better when you take large amounts twice a week than the same amount divided by 7. Yeah.
Didn't know that.
No one knows for sure why, but I learned this from a doctor that does a lot of research with brain injuries. He actually took one of my classes, but he shared that with a class. So then we did, that was about 3 years ago. So then I got all my students to espouse that principle. And we took the same dose. So let's say if a guy was taking 70,000 a week, we did 35,000 twice a week. But if you look at the velocity curve of replenishment of vitamin D3, it's way faster with the bolus system.
Wow. And you can store the stuff a little bit so you don't have to take it every day.
Correct. But I think what it does is it's you kind of need a bolus dose to saturate the tissues.
Gotcha. So
it's like saying, should I do a set of, let's say, squats every day or twice a week, do 10 sets each time? I think you're going to gain more strength. Twice a week, you bust your balls for 2 hours, then, you know what I mean?
So you think that most people should start off with a high dose of 50,000 maybe units and twice a week?
Well, first they should get it tested, but, even state of Arizona, okay, which is quite sunny, percentile 99 was only 27.
So no one goes outside, that's why.
Yeah, it's too hot.
Yeah.
But the point being is that, for example, the average Irish value is 40. But if you work in Dublin July 17th between 9:18 and 9:32 in the morning, you miss summer. So their exposure to sunlight is pitiful at best. So they get really bad. But what you find, though, is that, for example, with my Irish students, once they replenish their vitamin D3, everything improves. And vitamin D3 is also linked to depression.
I've read that. You're right. I've also...
Actually, we must publish on my website probably one thing a week on D3, because the thing is that the research on it is kind of new. Only in 2007, that I would say, that the scientific community started to develop interest in it.
You're right. What's the website, by the way, just so that people know?
It's very simple. It's charlespoliquin.com.
Okay. And what do you think about vitamin K? Because I know vitamin K is another one coming out. At least the K2 and K3 versions people are saying that's important to replenish now. It's not just for clotting anymore. It also has innumerable other contributions to the body.
For example, it's been shown to reverse arteriosclerosis. So we actually have a fish oil that contains both D and K in it for that purpose.
What's it called?
Omega-3 D plus K.
Oh,
so we sell a lot of that. I mean, I always like to keep it simple.
How did you get into the whole supplement? You're a strength and conditioning coach. That's probably what pretty much people wouldn't believe that you were so knowledgeable in supplements. How did you get involved with that?
Well, because we, after the Ben Johnson incident in '88, Canada really got strongly into doping control. Norway and Sweden followed suit. So then we have to find ways to increase biological recovery without using any banned substances. There was more of a demand for it, so I started to look into it. And I've always been into supplements even as a kid, but then talking to guys like Mauro Di Pasquale and stuff like that, they kind of enlightened me. And then when I worked in Monaco, I met a functional medicine practitioner. It was the first time I met one, and he was kind of a mentor to set me on the right track to learning about it. But I think that it's you grow as fast as you recover. So if you recover fast, you got to grow faster.
And it's 100% true. It's a holistic. You have to address all things. You can't just look at one thing like it's in its own little microcosm.
Correct.
Look at nutrition.
If a guy's 40 years old and his testosterone is lower than a Catholic schoolgirl, then I don't think that's what leads HRT, But if he's going to do HRT, the problem with that is I may need to manage conversion of testosterone into different estrogen fractions.
Or ADHD.
So instead of using, let's say, anastrozole, you could take DIM, which will do the same job without putting further stress on the liver. So I think our HRT is a valuable tool, but you still have, some things that will change. For example, your calcium balance and need more magnesium. So all that stuff is important. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people see the world through a straw. And then, for example, there's a study out there that says, hey, if you take melatonin before you train, you produce more growth hormone. Yes, but you fall asleep.
Exactly right.
So who gives a shit? So Bodybuilding magazine will publish that paper, and guys go buy melatonin and they fall asleep on the decline and guillotine themselves. So the point being is that when people, a lot of times people say, well, what about this research? And I read 16 hours a week of research, so it's rare that I don't know what's about it, and I've got a girl that full-time does research for me. But what I find interesting is people will quote one piece of literature. If you look, for example, at green tea, half the studies will show you it actually induces cancer. But you look at the studies that it shows it induces cancer, so they're preventing it. The problem is the tea bags themselves, not the tea.
Right. It's not the ingredients.
Chlorinated tea bag that does that. So, you have to... And then I think the way to be ahead is not to be afraid to invest the money to find somebody who knows more than you do. So, for example, with estrogen detoxification, I hired this woman in the Northwest. So if I need to detoxify a compound, there's another woman from Gig Harbor that I use. And if I want to know about vitamin E, there's a guy in Boston. So, people are too cheap to pay for information to fall by the wayside. So I do invest probably $150,000 a year just in getting people's advice.
Well, you have a tremendous array of supplements on charlespoliquin.com, and you can check that out. Obviously, you can check out all